Welcome to the Elk Talk Podcast with Randy Newberg and Corey Jacobson. Presented by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation.
The goal is, what little you and I know about elk hunting, we share with people.
I've got an elk bugle, it's like 120 yards away. What do I do? First off, the thought would never cross my mind when an elk's bugle 120 yards away to call anybody on a cell phone.
All elk?
All the time? Only elk?
Only elk.
Well, it's us having conversations, so we usually go down some rabbit holes, but
If you hunt with Corey Jacobson, you will find the landscape is full of rabbit holes. We're just going to make this up as we go.
and you look at it like, oh, that's a target-rich environment. But if you're trying to single one out, a solo target there is much easier to go into than a big group.
We record everything, so there's no BS and no lying, no faking it with us.
Did we hit the record
I thought
button?
I forgot to hit the record button. If you want to know something about elk hunting, this probably isn't the podcast to listen to. Should we give them a list of all the other podcasts where they might learn something? The Elk Talk Podcast is brought to you by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, ensuring the future of elk, other wildlife, their habitat, and our hunting heritage. To become a member, go to rmef.org.
And the podcast is also brought to you by onX Maps. And with onX Maps, you can know where you stand with the most accurate hunting GPS tech on the market with land ownership maps that work offline. Go to onxmaps.com and use promo code ElkTalk, and you're going to save 20% when you sign up for an app membership at onxmaps.com.
The podcast is also brought to you by Gerber. Go to gerbergear.com and learn about the knives, the Vital, the Big Game Vital, the Gator Premium, all the things that we use when we're out in the woods, and not just knives, but also some really cool multi-tools that they have.
And we have a promo code for Gerber as well. Just use the code ElkTalk to save 20% on your orders at gerbergear.com. And we are also brought to you by Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. And Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls is the original designer and inventor of the pallet plate diaphragm that's completely changed the way elk calls are made and used. And to find out more and to order your elk calls, go to RockyMountainHuntingCalls.com or buglingbull.com and use promo code ElkTalk, and you're going to save 15% on all of your elk calls and elk call accessories.
The Elk Talk Podcast is also brought to you by GoHunt.com. Go to GoHunt.com and sign up for the Insider. The Insider is changing how hunts and hunting information are found. No doubt about that. Use promo code ElkTalk, and when you sign up for the Insider, you're going to get $50 of store credit, mad money, in their gear shop.
Lastly, the University of Elk Hunting online course is a proud partner of the Elk Talk Podcast. And within the University of Elk Hunting online course, you're going to find nearly 60 chapters organized in 17 modules of elk hunting instruction aimed at making you a more successful elk hunter. From planning and e-scouting to calling strategies and packing, every imaginable elk hunting topic is included in the online course. And regardless of your previous elk hunting experience or success, I'm confident the University of Elk Hunting online course will make you a more confident, more successful elk hunter. Just visit elk101.com and use the promo code ElkTalk to save 20% when you sign up for a membership to the University of Elk Hunting online course.
And with that, Corey, we are ready to get into it.
Let's jump into it.
Morning, Corey.
Morning, Randy. How are you?
I'd have to be you to be any better, most likely.
I certainly have nothing I can complain about, so.
Me either. And if I complained, nobody would listen. And my grandma always used to say that if you complain without a solution, you're just sniveling. So
Don't be a sniveler.
Exactly. And in my family, the term sniveling gets used a lot. And when people come to our family gatherings and they hear, "Oh, you sniveler, you whiner, quit sniveling," they look at us like, is sniveling is that like one of your code words in this family? You guys use it a lot. And we can thank Grandma for that.
That's a lot of motivation for a young kid growing up being told you're a sniveler. So just makes it so you don't complain.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I thought about doing some merchandise, something to the effect of quit sniveling or no snivellers or something like that, with it being elk hunting, because if there's any endeavor I have in my life that causes me at times to snivel silently to myself, it's elk hunting, because I'm not very good at it, and I flunk out a lot of times.
Plus, it's really hard. So if you're going to have something to snivel about, it's probably going to be at the top of the list.
Yeah. So anyhow, I'm not sniveling about tag drawings this year.
No kidding.
Colorado just came out the other day. And this kind of gets into our podcast last week. Or was it last week or the week before?
Yeah, the last one.
Okay.
Our last podcast.
There you go. We were talking about point creep in these states, and we used some examples of states that have preference point systems. And since then, you and I got a bunch of emails from people saying, wow, thanks for hitting the reset button on my expectations. I did not realize there were that many people in the system, and what the reality of point creep is going to be no matter what. So hopefully there was some value in that discussion.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the big eye opener for a lot of people. You know, the reality is 8 of the 10 Western elk states have a point system. So you have to play that game if you want to hunt one of those states. And I think, you know, you and I especially, our platform reaches those who are newer hunters, just because, you know, that's kind of, if you're wanting to learn, I think my name and your name come up a little bit, because we want people out there. We want to teach people. We want people to be successful. And so many of those new hunters send us messages or emails saying, I'm so excited. I just started building points in Utah, and I'm going to draw a tag there and can't wait to go hunt with my cousin, or, you know, whatever it is. And you hate to be that dream dasher that says, listen, you don't have a chance. Go hunt with your cousin in Colorado, or go here, or go here. But man, the reality is most of these states, if you're just getting in and hoping to draw that hunt that is, you know, where your family camped when you were a kid, or, you know, some of these places that just, that reality is you probably don't have a chance of drawing it. But I've got enough phone calls from you in the last 2 weeks to know that maybe you don't have to have a lot of points to draw hunts.
Well, and I don't mean this to, you know, be rubbing it in people's nose who didn't draw, but it's a function of setting proper expectations. I burned all my points in Colorado in 2016, and I realized, okay, I had chances to hunt in other states while I was building those points, and someday I'm going to burn them. And when I do, I'm going to hit the reset button in Colorado. So yesterday I found out by looking at my credit card that Colorado took my 3 points that I had. And it's not going to be some glory unit, but I'm going to a spot in Colorado that I've driven by, I don't know how many times. But every time I drive by it, I'd look up in those big peaks and say, someday I'm going elk hunting up there. Well, this is the year. And the point of that is knowing what point creep is in Colorado. I'm not going to sit around and wait until I have 40 points again, because I'm going to be dead before I have 40 points. I want to go every 2 or 3 years. And if you look at the draw odds, you can find hunts in Colorado that are pretty good. Yeah. With only 2 to 3 points. And it's a first rifle season, and I'm not going there expecting I'm going to see Utah, Nevada, Arizona kind of old bulls. You know, there's going to be a younger age class. But I'm going to go there. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to learn a lot. I'm going to make some more stupid mistakes, hopefully learn from those. And I'm going elk hunting. And that's kind of the message we've been preaching, if you want to say that, for the last few podcasts, is these point systems are realities, make sure your expectations have some reality to it.
Yep.
So.
And in addition to that, don't be completely disheartened, because there are still quality tags that can be drawn with 2 or 3 points. And when we say quality, we aren't talking trophy quality. We aren't talking top of the list quality, but they're better than an over-the-counter tag.
Yep.
Even if it's just, you're hunting the same number of animals and the same size of animals, but there's a limited number of people there. Or, maybe it's the other way. Maybe there's more animals than what you'd find on a normal over-the-counter hunt. So don't be discouraged by the fact that you can't draw these premier hunts without a whole bunch of points and that you'll never get there in your lifetime. There are still good hunts that are worth building points for and drawing every, like 2 to 3, 4 to 5 years, and you can have some great hunts. You have, 4 elk tags in your pocket this year?
I do. I have Montana. People would say, well, you can get Montana over the counter. Yeah, I can. But with 3 points, I drew a limited entry tag in Montana. And it's one that's kind of overlooked. It's not the highest demand limited entry tag by any means. But I looked at it and said, you know what? I can go there and make a good hunt of it. Yeah, there's these issues of public, private, and there's this and that. But if I give it my effort, I can make a pretty good hunt of it, I think. So I have that tag. Wyoming, I back to expectations. I'm never going to get to the top of the point pool in Wyoming. I've been burning my points every 2 or 3 years. And this year, I said, you know what? I've never had a general tag in Wyoming. There's the non-resident, the hunt code is GEN, general. So I said, I'm going to take my 2 points and I'm going into the draw for the general. And I drew. So, and then I went and bought over the counter in Idaho. So I've got those 4 elk tags and none of them took more than 3 points.
Yep. And those are those top 4 states that you and I always talk about: Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and Idaho, as far as those are opportunity states for the most part. That general tag in Wyoming is an over-the-counter tag if you're a resident. If you're non-resident, you have to apply for it. But it is, it's not a high-quality type tag because it is over-the-counter if you're a resident. But you can draw it with 2 points. It's still a good hunt. It's a over-the-counter equivalent type hunt. And so, yeah, you actually showed exactly what we talk about. Go hunting often. And those 4 states provide you that opportunity. If you wanted to go to a different state every year, you could rotate between Idaho, Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana and realistically draw or buy an over-the-counter tag for those 4 states and be able to hunt every year in those 4 states. Rotating.
Yep. And, I might draw a bit of a blank next year just because I won't have any Wyoming or Colorado points, but I'll still be able to do over the counter in Idaho if I want to. And so I know some people wouldn't do 4 hunts in a year. It's obvious this is what we do. But the point is exactly what you said, is to show people that you don't need a pile of points to go elk hunting. You need a plan, a commitment, and some reasonable expectations that fit your budget of time and money, and off you go. And for me, I think I'm going to learn a ton about elk hunting this year. I've never hunted the areas I'll be hunting in Wyoming. I've never hunted the area that I'll be hunting in Idaho. I've never hunted the area I'll be hunting in Colorado. All 3 of these are like going in blind. I'm going to have to do my e-scouting. I'm going to have to go through the whole process again. And in that process, I'm going to learn a lot in my research. I'm going to make a bunch of mistakes. I'm going to arrive there with my plan that has a lot of false assumptions in it, and I'm going to have to adapt on the fly. And maybe I'll have success, maybe I won't. But my bank of hunting knowledge is going to have a few more deposits made to it this year.
Totally. Before we go completely away from the topic of bonus points and preference points, we did, like you mentioned, we get a bunch of emails in the last week or so. They've flooded in on the bonus points. Most of them, and that's the thing. we're not trying to be negative on this. We're trying to be realistic on what the bonus point systems cause.
Right.
And hopefully, with Randy's story of 4 tags this year is still showing, hey, bonus points and preference points still work. You can still draw tags. Just be realistic in your expectations and know that if you're going for one of the top tier hunts, it's going to take a long time, and realistically, you might not draw that. But one of the emails we got was a question following up on that last podcast, and I'll just read it real briefly here. I have a question about your last podcast about bonus preference points. From past media, I've known about point creep, but after listening to that episode and the way you explained it, why would a fish and game agency continue to use that system? So that's the first question, and I think you and I would both answer it the same way. They're locked in now; they don't have a choice.
Right. Yep. Once you head down that path, there's not an exit.
Yeah, and that leads into the next part of his question that I think we can expand on a little bit. But he mentioned, I'm sure it has to do with revenue, but what would it look like if states stopped using the bonus or preference point system? Tag cost would have to go up to make up for the revenue. How much would it go up? And he said, personally, I'd rather just do away with the system. Can you guys help me wrap my head around what a transition would look like? So, yeah, basically close your eyes, and that's what a transition would look like. It can't happen. There's no way a state can. There's too many people that are invested for 20 plus years that if a state went away from a system like that, I think lawsuits, I think, just all these things that they can't. That's why we always talk about these topics that come up. It's a slippery slope because once you go down it, you can't turn around and get back up it. You can't be like, oh, that was a big mistake. Let's backtrack and go back. Now all these states are starting to try to modify it or change it. And all it does is just muddy the water even more.
Yeah. And I'll use some examples of where states tried to modify both one direction and then another. I'll use Arizona. I think it was in 2007, Arizona said that they never used to have this situation where 20%, currently 20% of the tags go into of what they call the first round draw to the highest point holders. It effectively converts your bonus points to preference points. And that's for the first 20% of the tags. Well, that was never part of the system until I think it was 2007 is when that came in. I'd have to go in and look, and someone might fact check me on that, but whatever date it was, the principles are the same. So guys like me who've been buying into the system, and I'm getting close to the top of the point pile, on some of these species, I'm thinking, whoa, I didn't see that coming. Look at this big bonus I got here. I'm at the top of the pile. I end up drawing an Arizona strip mule deer tag because of that system. Something I never dreamed of. When I started, I never thought that would happen. So that's a big benefit to me as a high point holder. Well, I think, what was it, 2016, maybe 17, Arizona says, well, we're going to keep that in place, but no more than half of the non-resident quota can be filled in the first part of that draw. So now a whole bunch of people who had kind of been trained for the prior 10 years to think, hey, I'm at the top of the point pool, that's really beneficial for me. Now they're all mad because they're like, wait a second, you're changing the game as we go along here. And yep, these states all have some experience to look to, either in their state or in neighboring states, about what happens when you start tweaking these systems.
And I think it's really all a result of which group of hunters complains the loudest. So
who shows up at the legislature?
Yeah, so back in 2007, all these people who screamed, I want bonus points, I want bonus points, I want bonus points, because I want to be able to draw a tag, they realized, hey, we aren't drawing a tag. I've got 15 points in Arizona. I'm still not drawing a tag. we want you guys to set aside some of the tags for us who've been standing in line longest. So the Fish and Game says, okay, let's do that. Let's give them, they're right. It's only fair. They've been standing in line longer. Let's give them a portion of tags set aside for those with the most points. So they do that. Well, who do they take from? All the people who have not been standing in line as long, but still have been standing in line for 7, 8, 10 years. So now those are the people who start complaining. Yeah. So in 2017, Fish and Game finally has enough and says, you know what, you're right. We're taking too many tags from you guys and giving them to the guys with the top points. So now we're going to take them back away from those guys and put them back in so everybody has a chance. And all they're trying to do is just walk that fine line between trying to please everybody, and in a bonus point system, you can't do it. It doesn't work.
Yeah. And, I'll use my state of Montana, for example. We hadn't stacked the deck deep enough in favor of the old gray-haired guy like me. So a bunch of old gray-haired guys, even grayer than me, show up at our Montana legislature. And at first, their first request is that we carve away a pool of moose, goat, and sheep tags for any hunters over 65. You laugh, but it was a bill that got put into committee. Well, most of us went up there and it didn't even get out of committee. Well, undeterred, that group then the next legislative session shows up and says, okay, we didn't win last time, but let's square these bonus points. As if that's going to make a difference. When you're talking moose, goat, and sheep, that's what these people were really focused on, which in Montana, your odds are ridiculously low. Well, if 95% of the people have maximum bonus points, what good does it do to square your bonus points? Because now when you square everybody, we're all still sitting at the same number of bonus points. It's like, really? But what happens is most of these systems can't be changed without legislative approval. And we all know what happens when legislatures get involved in wildlife management. All it takes is somebody who has the ear of their neighbor who's a senator, sits on the Game and Fish Committee in the legislature, and all of a sudden here comes some bill to tweak the system. And you see it every year. I mean, I look at your state, Corey, when the draw odds come out here in about 2 or 3 weeks, the forums will light up with requests from some disgruntled Idaho person who wants a point system. And they'll go to their buddy who's a legislator, and you guys are going to have to fight to keep that from happening.
It happens all the time, and that's the problem. The legislature, they're in charge. I mean, they're the ones that pass the bills. They're the ones that introduce the bills, and it doesn't come from the Fish and Game. A lot of times they'll try to sneak it in. So you get some member of the legislature that is buddies with somebody that has a whole bunch of land that contributed to their campaign, and they say, hey, we've got these giant elk on our land that it's a draw-only hunt, and it's not fair. They're on our land. We own 10,000 acres here, and I watch these big bulls, and it's just not fair that I don't get to hunt them on my own land. So can't we make it so that we can buy a landowner tag in Idaho? Or can't we get a bonus point system so that I'll be guaranteed to draw this tag before anybody else? And the legislature says, yeah, the legislator says that's a good idea. I'll add that to one of the existing bills that's there as a rider. And that existing bill might be approving a budget increase for the Fish and Game Department for the first time in 12 years. So now they've attached that. So the Fish and Game's hands are tied. The department's hands are tied. If they reject that because of the rider that's been attached to it, the whole bill gets thrown out, and they lose their funding, their budget increase. And so it's really, people like to badmouth the Fish and Game departments. It's usually not them that are making these decisions or putting these decisions out to be passed. And so we see it all the time that we have to vocally get a hold of not the Fish and Game, but our state representatives who are in charge of voting on these, and let them know, hey, here's the real issue. Yes, some rich guy down in the other part of the state that doesn't even have anything to do with our part of the state wants this because he's selfish, and it's going to affect everybody else. It's going to affect, recruitment of hunters, new hunters coming in, all these things that somebody who just wants to be able to get their own tag is thinking only of themselves and not looking down the line of what the total ramifications and effects of that are going to be. So, don't get up in arms and start screaming at fish and game departments necessarily. It's usually not them. And oftentimes their hands are tied. I mean, literally, we've got to have a budget increase this year. We're operating in a deficit. And, that's what that question asks. Is it about revenue? Are these point systems about revenue? To a degree, I think so. But I think if you asked anybody to make up the difference in tag and license costs over what they would lose in revenue from a point system, I think most hunters would be okay with that increase in the tag and license costs, because it wouldn't be that much, $6, $10, $15, whatever it is. Yeah, it would be an increase, but it's not the revenue. It's the fact that somebody was selfish, wanted the point system, got it pushed through, passed it, and now can't go back. We're locked into it.
Yeah, I think there's someone's at. So his other question is, what would a transition look like? I can rattle off a whole bunch of things that I think would be some transition steps. And I'll use Colorado, for example. They've got landowner tags there. Okay. If you buy a landowner tag, if you get a permit in any manner, you lose your points that year. Whew. Now because what happens in Colorado, people buy landowner tags and still bill points at the same time.
Or buy an over-the-counter tag and still build points.
Right. So that could be a possibility. I'm not telling Colorado guys what to do. I'm just saying these are examples. In Montana, we could get rid of the squaring of bonus points. Nevada has an interesting thing where if you draw any of your choices, or even if you draw in the leftover draw, you burn your points.
So do you see the trend? Do you see the trend in all that? If we are to transition, we're going to lose opportunity. We have to sacrifice something in order to get back to the way it was originally. Now we have to give up something that we have, whether that is, sitting out of the system for 5 years or 10 years, whether that is not being able to purchase an over-the-counter tag on the years that we apply for hunts, whether that is, paying more. It comes back to sportsmen, to the hunters. They're the ones that, once again, sacrifice and have to pay the cost.
Yeah. I mean, I'll use some examples like in your state, Corey. If you say I drew a limited controlled hunt for bull elk, I couldn't apply for that same hunt the following year.
Or any controlled hunt for bull elk.
Yeah. Well, in Montana, I sat on our point committee, and this could be another transition. I advocated that we keep half the tags out of the point system and keep them in a random pool, kind of like Wyoming does. They don't do half. 75% are subject to the point system for non-residents, and 25% end up being part of the random draw. Well, you could change, you slowly start taking some of the tags out of the point system and putting them in a random draw, kind of like Wyoming does. But one of the things we have in Montana is a 7-year wait period for moose, goat, and sheep. Well, most states, those are once in a lifetime. I think in your state, aren't moose, goat, and sheep once in a lifetime? Yep. They are in Utah. I'm not sure about in some other states. But anyhow, you could make those once in a lifetime. You could say, I advocated for this when I was on the committee, that with our high demand bull elk permits, anything that has draw odds, of tougher, worse odds than 10% or 20%, whatever number you wanted to put on it, that there would be a 3 or 5 year wait before you could apply for that tag, for a limited entry bull elk tag. Because after that, in that other period, you'd have to hunt your general just over the counter tags. Oh my goodness. You would have swore that I asked to burn the Capitol down or something. But there are mechanisms that a lot of states use that if hunters in their state, and I think it has to reflect what the hunters in that state want. It shouldn't be a reflection of what out-of-state hunters want. If you want something changed in your state, back to your point earlier, Corey, the hunters need to be the ones who start working with legislators to tweak, change, or transition this as the person is asking about. And I'm not going to say what it would look like, because every state's going to have a different idea about that.
Yeah.
And it should reflect what the hunters of that state want. But there are a ton of other ideas out there. Just a few examples I gave, that's just a small portion of what could be done to start transitioning away from, maybe the pendulum has swung too far on stacking the deck towards the highest point holders or the old gray-haired guys like me. And the pendulum starts swinging back. I don't know. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. I have my own personal opinion about it. I do think it is.
Like you said,
I don't know what transition would look like, but there's plenty of options out there.
Totally. And like you said, every state is different how they're set up. And so a transition for those states would have to be different for each state. But I do think that there are ideas that would work. The problem is, most of the time, these ideas and these proposals are not driven by the general sportsman. Typically, they're driven by a couple of individuals who have the ear of a legislator, and they're able to get it in and push it. And so you do have to be proactive if you want to make a change in that state, because typically what happens, these things come flying in under the radar, they get on there, and before people even have a chance to comment or really even know about it, it's all of a sudden there. And so I think, hunters have to start being proactive in these, not even just point systems, but anything that affects hunting, access, things like that. It's so important to be proactive and to look ahead and think, hey, we've got an issue here. What would a solution look like? And this goes back to what you said about your grandma. Don't be a sniveler. Don't sit there and say, it stinks in this state. I hate the way the state is doing this. I hate that. Don't snivel or don't complain unless you have a solution, because then you're just a sniveler. So think of a solution. Get input from people. I think that, for me, especially in Idaho, I would love to be involved with looking ahead at what hunting opportunity looks like. And our Fish and Game, to their credit, does a really good job with surveys, with polling people, with getting ideas. I think that our Fish and Game department is very much on the side of the hunters and works to get information, to get hunter involvement, to get hunter feedback, so that when things like this come up, or to be proactive so that they don't even come up. But I think they've done a really good job, and I think that hunters just have to be involved with the departments, with the legislator and all of that, and be the ones setting the pace, setting the direction, rather than sitting back and waiting for somebody to come in and propose something and then fight against what's been proposed. I think that's one of the biggest changes that we have to see as hunters. Is we've just been so passive for so long that it's time to start being forward thinking, moving in the right direction, and helping set the tone and the direction of where things are going.
Yeah. And I know some people hearing that are going to say, well, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. I don't have time, whatever. Well, a lot of times you might have a group that you could belong to, your state bow hunter association or your local rod and gun club or whatever. And they usually have some people in those memberships who go to legislative sessions and testify on behalf of the rank and file hunter. So there are places and options. Getting on Facebook, hammering on your keyboard and posting a meme usually is not going to have much impact on the future that you want to see. So those are places that interested people can exercise. You can go. There's nothing more fearful to a legislator who doesn't have your interest in mind than when you and 5 or 6 of your friends show up well informed and determined. They're like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to slip this one under the rug.
Yep. I can justify it to myself, but there's no way I'm going to justify it to the masses. So
So never underestimate the power of what you and a few friends can do in a state legislature. And,
totally.
Sometimes that comes through your local rod and gun clubs or other state associations, but you can make a difference and you can help craft what that future is. And I, like you were just saying, Corey, I don't think it necessarily has to be an issue about these point systems. It could be an issue about, keep the legislature from mingling in our season settings. Keep the legislature's hands out of this or out of that or whatever it might be. You can make a difference.
Yep.
So,
well, with all that, we've kind of transitioned.
That was one question, Corey.
Yeah, and it kind of let's talk about elk and elk hunting. Let's find one of those questions.
I'm going to ask you this one because this is an archer, and everybody knows that if they send the Elk Talk podcast a question about archery hunting, they're probably going to get the good answer from Corey and some colorful commentary from Randy. This one has to do with the person who's thinking of coming to Colorado. And he's laying out the scenarios for September of 2021. It looks like that's when he's going to be able to go. He's studied the fall equinox date and the moon phases. And this is what he's saying. The scenario for this question is this. September 6th is the new moon and only a few days after the archery opener. The black powder hunt runs from September 11th to the 19th. Full moon hits on the 20th and fall equinox hits the 22nd. I can pretty much go anytime I want in the month of September, and I have the flexibility to hunt for 9 days. Given the conditions I've explained, what would be your preference on the days to hunt? Would the black powder season keep you out when hunting with out of there from hunting with archery equipment, or would you just wade in amongst them?
So before I dive into all that, I'll just say Colorado is one of the most difficult states to pick a week to hunt for archery. And the reason why, you've got the early part of the season, which you're taking a risk of heat, you're taking a risk of elk not being vocal. You've got the middle of the season, which generally would be the time that I would suggest. If you had 1 week or 10 days to go, I would always look to that middle part of the season. But in Colorado, basically the middle 10 days of the month, they open a muzzleloader season concurrent with the archery season. And so that fouls things up. So then you look at, there's a lot of activity in the woods during the muzzleloader season. There are muzzleloaders going off. What kind of an effect is that going to have on the elk to go and hunt them the week after the muzzleloader season closes? Are the elk going to be more pressured? It's the last week, so people have been there chasing them first part of archery season, now the muzzleloader season. And then you throw moon phases into all of that. And it can be really tough in Colorado. That muzzleloader season in the middle of archery season fouls up a lot of planning in Colorado. Now, with that being said, I've heard of people that have hunted archery during the muzzleloader season, never saw a muzzleloader hunter, never heard a muzzleloader go off. I have talked to other people in Colorado that during that week, it was a sea of orange out there and there were muzzleloader hunters everywhere. So I think some units get hit harder by the muzzleloader hunters than other. If you're hunting one of those units that doesn't get as much muzzleloader hunting pressure, I think you're still okay going during that season. So all of that being said, I jumped out on Elk 101 and was looking at the calendar. We do a moon phase calendar every year for September and October, and then we talk about which weeks are going to be best to hunt. This year, it's really, again, that muzzleloader season, I think, is the 12th through the 20th in Colorado, which is the absolute premium week when it comes to moon phase. The new moon hits on the 17th or 18th. You've got the fall equinox on the 21st or 22nd. So that 12th through the 20th is absolutely the peak week for elk hunting this year. But it coincides with...
In 2020.
In 2020, yep. So looking at 2021... it's almost a flip. You've got the full moon hitting on the 20th, which this year, 2020, the new moon hits on the 18th. Next year in 2021, the full moon hits on the 20th. So moon phase wise, it's almost a flip. So that last week of the season in 2021, you're looking at the 20th through the 30th time frame. Typically is good. Bugling action is going to be good. You're after the muzzleloader hunt, but in 2021, you're basically dealing with a full moon almost that entire time. Early, I think it opens on the 4th. So early down there, 4th through the 11th, you're hunting before the muzzleloader season. You've got the new moon on the 6th. So moon phase wise, it's good. The problem is it might be just a little too early. So I guess for me, if I'm looking at it, if I'm anticipating muzzleloader hunting, is the pressure from that's going to be high, and I want to avoid the black powder season from the 11th to the 19th. The moon phase is not going to be good the last week. It could be hot early, even though the moon phase is good. I would either go before or after, and if I had to just throw a dart and pick one of them, it's tough. Usually I can, one of them jumps out and says, yeah, this is a better choice. I don't know that there's a better choice in 2021. Yeah. I think that any of those 3 time periods, before the muzzleloader season, during the muzzleloader season, after the muzzleloader season, I think any of those 10-day time frames are going to be a toss-up in 2021 in Colorado.
So here's what my answer would be in that dilemma. And I don't know if this person is a resident or a non-resident. I'm going to assume they're a non-resident. But if they're a resident of Colorado, that might be the only place they apply and hunt. So my alternative might not be applicable to them. But if you were a non-resident, I would buy a point in Colorado in 2021, and I would apply for a general tag in Wyoming. And if I didn't draw that, I'd buy my over-the-counter tag in Idaho. And then I'd go pick the best dates and not have to worry about the best dates of the season being conflicted with muzzleloader hunting.
Yep. This year, 2020 in Colorado, it's an easier decision.
Yeah.
Muzzleloader runs 12th through the 20th, I think. You've got the new moon, basically that entire 12th through 20th time frame. Moon phase is great. Fall equinox hits right as soon as muzzleloader season ends. So that week's going to be a really good week to hunt. I think I would take the chance of some muzzleloader pressure and hunt at least the second half of that week, and then hunt part of the next week after the muzzleloader season ends. That 20th through 27th time frame, the moon is still good. The elk rut's going to be in full swing. Temperature should be dropping. So I'm leaning more towards the second half of the season in Colorado in 2020. It's a lot clearer of a picture when you're looking at that moon phase calendar and the muzzleloader season this year. I'd probably, if I had 10 days, I'd probably hunt the 17th through the 26th in Colorado this year. 2021, it's ugly enough that I might even consider taking that year off from Colorado, like Randy said, and looking somewhere else for an over-the-counter hunt or a general hunt. Montana general tag, Wyoming general tag, Idaho over-the-counter tag. You're just able to better use the calendar, the moon phase, and the fall equinox in 2021 without that muzzleloader season messing things up.
Yeah. And you and I know that a lot of archery hunters, this is going to sound like blasphemy, but there are some people listening to this who aren't, they're kind of weapon agnostic, if you want to call it that. They'll just go whenever. Some of them are probably saying, well, in 2021, why don't you just go in the muzzleloader season?
Yep.
Which would be an option, but we know that sometimes archers that would be blasphemy to say I'm going with anything other than my bow. They won't go with a rifle. They aren't going with a muzzleloader. They're going with their bow. So I fully understand that, but that would be another option.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a great week of hunting in 2021. That 11th through 19th time frame should be really good from the moon phase leading up to the fall equinox, everything. And again, I have not hunted Colorado during the muzzleloader season, so I can't speak to what kind of pressure it is. If you're only hearing 2 or 3 muzzleloader shots go off during a week of hunting and there's not that much of an increase of pressure at the trailheads, no worries. It's just, it's like an archery season. And here in Idaho, there's a grouse season, so we hear 410 shotguns going off every once in a while. We hear a rifle going off, sighting in. Bear hunting, bear season's open with any weapon. So, I mean, it's not like it's just pure quiet out there and all you hear is elk bugling everywhere with no gunshots or vehicles on the road or anything. You still have to deal with that. So I think it comes down to the pressure.
Go pick what you think are the best dates. You're flipping the coin a little bit maybe on dates in 2021, but mostly just make sure you go elk hunting.
So that leads to another question here. Somebody else asked another question. When selecting a unit to hunt for an elk hunter who only has a few years experience, would you pick a unit that you've already hunted even though you only found one elk? You found sign every day, or would you pick another unit and start a new adventure in brand new country? Basically, would you rather hunt a unit you know the landscape even though it wasn't real productive, or would you try another area? These are all over-the-counter units for whatever that's worth.
For me, it's I can look in my rearview mirror and tell you what I did and what I should have done. I was struggling to find out my first. I've told this story so many times, people are tired of it. But my first 6 seasons, I did not kill a bull elk when I first started elk hunting. Well, I thought it's because of where I was hunting or I didn't have enough gadgets and doodads. So I would start bouncing around all over the place. And I never stayed in one place long enough to learn what elk are doing at certain times of the year. Because it's like, I went over to this mountain range. Now I got to relearn the roads and the topography and everything else. It was like hitting the reset button every time and not giving myself the opportunity to actually start learning, because there's so much you can learn about how elk use a landscape you understand. Once you understand that landscape, that becomes the constant. And the variables you're starting to identify are how the elk are using that landscape at certain times of the year. And I never gave myself enough time to do that. So in retrospect, I wish I would have picked an area. If I was in an area, and I went to many areas just like this person, where I found a lot of sign, but I wasn't finding elk. So I knew elk were there, but I just didn't have the experience and understanding to know where to find them. I wish I would have stayed in the same place, because I probably would have started learning habits and patterns that I could have applied when I did start going to other places. So I would answer that question by I would stay in that unit. If there are elk there and you're seeing a lot of sign, I would stay there and start learning how the elk use that landscape, especially after the second or third year. You're starting to get pretty familiar with how the land lays, where the hunting pressure is coming from, where the roads are, where the public-private is, all these things that could affect where elk move, disturbed or undisturbed. And you'd start learning, oh, wow, in September they're up there. In November they're over here. Well, why? Well, because of weather, maybe because it's feed, maybe it's because all of a sudden rifle season opened and they're responding to that intense hunting pressure. There's all kinds of things you'd learn about that, because you've kept the biggest variable that we often face, i.e. the landscape. You've kept that constant by staying in the same place for a couple of seasons in a row. So that's how I do it.
Yeah, I think my initial thought is completely opposite. And that doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but and I guess there's a couple of things that I would need to know additional information before I threw it out there and said this is exactly what I would do. But if I hunt for a week and I only find one elk, I'm moving. I'm going somewhere else. And there's probably, he said he was found sign every day. How fresh was the sign? How much pressure was in there? Was there a reason you only found one elk? Were you hunting during the rut? Was it during a bugle season and you only heard one elk bugle in a week? I'm going somewhere else for sure. Is it because there are wolves there? Is it because there's too much hunting pressure? Is it because you hunted the first week of season and nothing was bugling yet? There's a lot of factors that go into that. But if I'm hunting during a time when I should be finding more than one elk, I would say that if you're in a good area, even if you don't know the landscape that good, and even if you're a fairly new hunter, you should be able to find more than one elk in a week. So my first thought is go somewhere else. Go somewhere where you can find elk and hunt elk, because if you're spending 7 or 8 days looking for elk, you haven't even got to start hunting them yet. And I want to go someplace where I'm going to find elk faster so I can spend those 7 or 8 days hunting them. With that being said, there are some areas when we're talking over-the-counter units where the elk are there, but the elk know how to play the game, and it's going to take a few years of learning that landscape like Randy was talking about to be able to learn what the elk are doing, to learn how to hunt them, and that's not going to come quickly and easily. But my first thought is there are other areas where you're going to find more than one elk in a week, and especially for a new hunter, you might spend 7 years in that area finding one elk, and the next year you might find 6 elk, and the next year you might start learning a little more, but you aren't really starting to hunt elk until your 3rd or 4th season in that area. I would rather get that experience in an area where there are elk and you're able to hunt them and make some mistakes. And then once you learn how to hunt elk, go back and hunt those places that are a little harder. So for a newer hunter, I would probably say find new areas. Find an area where you enjoy it, where you're into elk, and then spend your time learning that area.
Cool. Well,
yeah,
I'm good with that.
No, and that's I agree 100% with what you said. I think my reaction to that situation might just be a little different. And it could be a difference of, are we talking rifle season versus archery season?
Okay. Yeah.
And if you're finding sign every day in rifle season, keep going back. But if you're finding sign every day in the peak of archery season and you only hear one elk bugle, go somewhere else. So I think it really depends on a couple of factors there.
Cool. Well, this person is, I think if they were running an investment portfolio, they'd be considered a contrarian based on the question they're asking. And I think it's a really good question. And it is this: with all other things being equal, i.e. vegetation, habitat, terrain, water, etc., and let's just say that the wilderness area is heavily hunted because everybody thinks it's a popular place to go, do you still consider the wilderness area because you will, the whole get away from roads thing? Or would you mark it off your map and look elsewhere?
Man, I don't know if I understand that question completely. All things being equal, so meaning out of the wilderness as opposed to in the wilderness. So if
in the wilderness, this is just arbitrary administrative boundary, I think the person has a really cool point here, and I'll use a Wyoming example where we went in a place where there's a wilderness area and we knew we couldn't go in there because we're non-residents. So we started hunting along the boundary, like within a mile or two of that wilderness area. And it is identical. The terrain looks the same. The habitat looks the same. But it was an area that residents could pretty much just go. And there were a ton of camps in the wilderness area. And we took advantage of elk getting pushed out of the wilderness area. And now, again, this is a rifle season, so this might be different. But I guess my answer would be it depends, but it's certainly not a bad idea to think about. Is if everybody's going to point A, I'm going to point B or C. Is kind of my answer. And we proved it. We Marcus ended up shooting a bull. I had another couple close encounters, and we were talking to some people who were in the wilderness area, and they're like, man, there's so damn many people or this or that. And we ended up being right outside the wilderness area. And I don't know if it was just the weather came in and caused them to move us slightly lower or what, or if it was the fact that there was more hunting pressure in the wilderness area than outside the wilderness area. And we ended up filling one tag and should have filled two. So probably depends on the circumstances, but I think it's a worthwhile consideration.
Yeah. And I guess I don't really even worry about whether it's a wilderness or a non-wilderness. Obviously in Wyoming you have to, because it's illegal for a non-resident to hunt in the wilderness. But if I'm looking at Colorado, Idaho, Arizona, things like that, I think my first thought is wilderness areas give me more options to get away from people. And so I might be inclined to scout that or research that or hunt that just based on that. But the second I get back in there and realize that there's a bunch of people and it's heavily hunted, I don't look on the map and say, okay, I have a choice between the wilderness area and the non-wilderness area. That's just an arbitrary line on a map to me. I'm looking at pressure and I'm trying to get away from pressure. So if there's more pressure in the wilderness than outside the wilderness, I'm outside the wilderness. But I'm not looking at it as, I have to choose this green section that's wilderness and this blue section that's not. I'm just trying to get away from the pressure. And that might be hunting off the highway instead of driving a gravel road for 30 miles and going in 7 miles on horses and finding out there's 20 camps in this meadow. I don't use wilderness as a factor when I'm looking at an area to hunt necessarily.
Yeah, me either. And I would say if people saw some of the places I hunt in archery season, they'd be like, Newberg, what about this sanctuary, this roadless area stuff? Look, I'm an equal opportunity guy when it comes to elk in the rut, especially. They don't really care about those boundaries. They care about where the cows are, and the cows care about where's their good feed. And they don't care if it's in a roded area or a non-roded area. And I mean, like when you came to Montana and we did that archery elk hunt, were we ever in a spot that didn't have motorized travel? No. And
No.
There was roads and logging trails and ATV trails everywhere. But that's where the elk were. So that's where we hunted.
And there were no people there for the most part. I mean, that's, and again, there's so many factors. We were hunting a road system and we didn't see hardly any people.
Yeah.
But there were grizzly bears everywhere. You go to an area where there's no grizzly bears and there's roads everywhere, you're going to see a lot more people. So there's just so many factors that kind of determine that pressure. And, in Wyoming, it's the non-resident, non-wilderness thing that kind of determines that pressure that, a lot of residents and a lot of non-residents with guides go into the wilderness thinking it's off limits to non-residents. And sometimes that stacks more people in that wilderness area and you can hunt right off of the main road outside of the wilderness area and find more elk. So.
Yeah. And I think what's being pointed out in our responses there is in the rut, particularly, don't get yourself hung up on this whole idea of roadless and sanctuary areas. The bulls are going to throw caution to the wind and they're going where the cows are. And the cows are going to be where the food is. So, yeah, later when...
And the cows are going to go away from pressure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, not necessarily to a sanctuary, but, they're not going to hang out in the same meadow and feed in the same meadow where there's 20 horse camps.
Yeah.
So, all things being equal, I don't worry about anything other than I want to get away from pressure and I want to find the elk. So, yeah.
And that's a huge difference between how that happens in September versus how it happens in November.
Absolutely.
I always try to emphasize that is the time of year that you are hunting makes such a big difference because elk are at least bull elk on public land are behaving completely differently in September than they are in November. So,
Yep.
but we always got to add one fun question to the mix. And this one, I don't know that I've ever heard it to this degree, but I get what he's saying, and it really has nothing to do with tactics, or strategies. And he says, you always hear the guy who shot a spike and claims he got 350 pounds plus of meat off that spike. So my question is to you guys, have you ever weighed the elk you pack out and the meat after it's processed? And the answer is yes. And we actually did a video on it 2 years ago. And we put it up there, and it generated a lot of interesting comments. Our buddy Bo Beatty, who has the llamas, the beauty of just what's required with llamas is you got to balance each side of their, the pannier on the right and the pannier on the left has to be really close in weight. So you got to weigh them. So that gave us the chance to weigh these quarters and the head and the the trim and all the other stuff. And suffice to say, this was a 4.5-year-old mature bull elk, and all those pieces did not weigh over 300 pounds.
So in the University of Elk Hunting online course, I have a full module on tracking and blood trailing, and one of the chapters in there is on the anatomy of elk. And so we talk about, where the bones are, where the vital organs are, all of that. And then the next module, the entire module, is on packing an elk. And I spend the first chapter of that module just talking about what the weights that you can expect are. And so I went to a game processor, a butcher here locally that does a lot of wild game animals. And I had him provide me with the average weights of everything they brought in. He also happened to have an average 5-point bull hanging there that we were able to actually, it was their whole, and we literally dissected it. So, we took meat out of the ribs, we took the front quarters off, weighed them and everything. Mm-hmm. And so those numbers, a front quarter with bone in, average throughout an entire season. This is for bull elk, so this is spikes all the way to mature elk. The average was 36 pounds for a front quarter with the bone in, and out of that you got 28 pounds of meat off of a front quarter. So boned out front quarter, 28 pounds. Hind quarter average with bone in was 66 pounds. Hind quarter boned out was 58 pounds. And then all the miscellaneous meat. This is getting everything. The neck meat, brisket meat, meat in between the ribs, the backstrap, and the tenderloins was 56 pounds. So if you add those 4 quarters and that miscellaneous meat up, that's an average of 228 pounds. So 228 pounds of meat on average. Yep. So is it possible to get over 300 pounds of meat on an elk? Yes. I've seen it. Not a lot, but 300 pounds of meat on an elk is a big, mature mountain bull. It's one of those elk that hits the ground. You walk up on it, you're like, my gosh, look at the size of this thing. It's huge. After you've seen 20 elk on the ground, you still look at this one and say, this is one of the biggest elk I've seen on the ground. Then you can get 300 pounds of meat off of it. What that translates to is if you are packing elk out of the backcountry and you leave the bone in, and you put a hind quarter and a front quarter on one pack. So you're packing half the elk. And then you split up the miscellaneous meat with each other. So you have 2 people that are packing that elk out. I don't know how many stories I've heard from people saying they had 180 pounds on their back, or they packed an elk, 205 pounds of elk, 11 miles back to the trailhead.
Yeah.
Okay, if you leave the bone in on an average elk and you pack half of that elk back out, you'll have 130 pounds on your back. And you will probably stagger most of the way back under that load. So we have weighed our packs. I had a pack one time that was 156 pounds. I thought for sure it was 300 pounds. It was crippling. It was not fun. The heaviest pack I've ever packed out and laid was 180 pounds. And it was 2.5 miles. It was downhill the whole way. And when I got to the bottom of that, it was, I'll never do that again. My back is killing me. And that's when I was younger. There have been maybe 5 times that I've packed more than 140 pounds, and it was not fun. I still remember every one of those packs, and only one of them hit 180 pounds, and it literally was way too much. Like, had to have help standing up, using trekking poles, and just literally putting one foot in front of the other on fairly flat ground. So, yeah, I think, you weighed it, you did the video on it. I did a bunch of research on it, and the fact is 225 pounds is probably the average amount of meat you're going to get off of a bull elk. A spike, probably 180 to 190. A mature 6-point, probably 260 to 280.
Yeah, that's out on our YouTube channel, and this person's comment about the 350-pound spike, it just makes me laugh because I've heard some of those same things. And as far as pack weights, I'm just getting smarter. Someone asked me this the other day of what's the maximum you'll pack out in one weight? 80 pounds. It's too hard on my body, my knees, my ankles, my back, my hips, that I would rather make one extra trip and a lot of people can, if you talk about people who get hurt, some sort of injury they have as the result of, I blew out a knee, or I messed up an ankle, or I did whatever, my back, now I'm going to the chiropractor, or I'm going to physical therapy. Your body, it's not linear. It's exponential, the stresses on your body and the likelihood of some sort of injury as the weight goes up.
Well,
I'm not doing that anymore.
And then you add age to it, and it goes up exponentially. You're coupling the exponential there, because the older you get, the smarter you sometimes should be getting, because it just takes longer to recover. Even without an injury, it just takes longer to recover from that excessive physical exertion, and chances of getting injured go way up.
Yeah. Which is why I went to Idaho Falls yesterday and bought a llama.
You did what? You bought a llama?
I went to Idaho. I bought a llama yesterday.
Man, you and I have talked a few times that we need to get Bo on the podcast, because I have a whole bunch of questions to ask him to determine whether I'm a prime candidate for a couple llamas. So what'd you name your new llama?
Well, we haven't named him yet. Gerber bought the naming rights from Bo, so they're going to hold a contest to name this llama. And I asked Bo, I said, well, what do you call him right now? He's 3 years old. Well, we call him Mac Daddy. I'm like, well, how did he come up with that name? Well, his mom is named Stevie Nicks. And I'm like, oh, like Fleetwood Mac Stevie Nicks? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I wonder how Stevie Nicks would feel knowing that there's a llama named after her. But so he said that's kind of where we got the Mac part. And he said, we called him Daddy because he's just big. I mean, this dude is only 3 years old, and he's taller than I am, and he already weighs 365 pounds. He's almost 50 inches at the spine. And Bo says he's going to gain about another 60 or 70 pounds and grow another inch or two in height. And so I'm going to have a great big old llama. And then I'm going to rent three more. And I don't know if Bo is willing to sell me one every year. And I'd like to have my own herd of 4 llamas. And I told him, I'm interested in them being used all summer. So I told him I'll let him use them in his summer pack trips just to get them in shape, keep them in shape. And so I know because of friendship, he's kind of doing that. And the fact that we only live 2.5 hours from each other. But it's back to your point of as it age, this exponential problem with age. I'm 55. And I started using llamas 3 years ago, and it has changed. Like where I just drew in Colorado, there is no way I would go in there without llamas. I'm going to be over 11,000 feet. I'm going to be 7 or 8 miles back. Not a chance I'm going in there without some way to extract an elk if I get lucky and tag one. I'm not carrying one out on my back for 7 or 8 miles. I'll admit it. I'm a wuss, man. At this point, I'm not doing that.
Hey, you're not a sniveler though.
No,
you have a complaint and you found a solution. So.
Exactly. So, yeah, hauling out those big loads. I get that some people got to do it once in a while, but I'm not doing it anymore. That's what llamas or horses or goats or whatever are for.
So you're 55.
Yeah.
You're using llamas.
Yep.
You've talked earlier about looking back and, being able to make decisions off of looking back in the rear view. 10 years ago, do you wish you would have had llamas 10 years ago?
Yes. If I would have had llamas 10 years ago, the places I would have made more out of some of the tags I had, because I wouldn't have had this concern. Because I think every hunter has this ethical concern about, if I shoot this thing, can I get it out of there in time without it spoiling? Especially if there's 2 of us. Say you and a buddy go. What if you shoot 2 of them? So that forces you to hunt closer to trailheads, closer to roads. Maybe you say, oh, I'm only hunting 2 miles away. Well, at age 45, if I would have been aware of what highly trained, well-bred pack llamas, not the llama that's out in your neighbor's pasture with their pet sheep. I'm talking like real pack llamas, Cara llamas. If I would have known that, Corey, oh man, now I think about the places, even with some deer hunts, some of the things I would have done. So live and learn.
Yeah. See, and there's such a difference between hiking with nothing on your back and hiking even with 30 pounds.
Yep.
You start talking 80 or 100 pounds, it's a completely different story. But you can go a lot harder and a lot farther with no weight on your back than you can with even just 30 pounds. After 10 miles or 12 miles and all day hiking, that makes a big difference. And then you do that for 7 straight days, or you do it for the entire month of September. I know how I feel at the end of September after packing out, 7, 8, 10 elk on my back. I know how I feel. And the thought of using a llama, even for nothing more than just packing our camp in and setting up, and then packing elk out, just that. But I've got a whole bunch of questions for Bo, so I think we need to get him on here, because it definitely has my interest piqued, because there are places, and for me, it's not as much the spoilage of the meat. I'm pretty confident we can take care of the meat and get it cooled down and it'll be fine. But it's the matter of coming out 8 miles with a whole elk, with 2 guys, maybe 3 guys, knowing the strain that's putting on our bodies, knowing that we have another tag to fill and we have to go back in, wore out and tired. If we can go back in with 3 or 4 llamas and hunt and know that we're going to be able to come out without a heavy pack on our back, that opens up not necessarily new areas, but it opens up, it almost changes the style of hunting you can do.
Yep. It does. And for me, if we have 2 tags, instead of having, if you're back there quite a ways, if you have a string of llamas, you can haul out 2 elk on your way out. Yeah, you got to load your camp and stuff on your back, and the llamas carry the elk. But think about how many times you've lost 1 or 1.5 days of a hunt because hunter number 1 shoots an elk, and it's all a hands on deck to get that one out.
Totally.
And so you lose 1 or, at least 1 day, maybe 1.5 to 2 days retrieving somebody's elk. Well, if you can just hang it around your camp in the shade and keep it cool and keep it from spoiling, you can keep hunting that day and the next day and the next day and know that it's all coming out at one time.
Yep. Well, and one person can bring out a string of llamas. So, in our situation, if we go back in deep and Donnie and I are hunting and cameraman John's there with us, Donnie shoots an elk on opening day. I'm telling him, let's load up the llamas. You take them out, and I'm going to stay here and hunt. And it's not putting an extra burden on him just to walk out without anything on his back and take the meat out and get it, to the processor or wherever we're going to hang it, and then come back in with the llamas. I still get ton a day, so I don't lose that day of hunting. It's not, it's not like I'm saying, oh, you pack your own elk out, on your back type of a thing. You spend the next 3 days packing your own elk out, and I'm going to keep hunting. It opens up, I think, more opportunity for places, for saving your knees for more years of elk hunting, for more chances of being successful. You've got my biggest concern is maintenance. I grew up around horses, and I know what horses are like to have to care for throughout the year and use during the season. And so I've got some questions for both.
Well, I think someone who does as much antler picking as you do in summer backcountry hunting, your llamas, if you own llamas, they would get a lot of exercise throughout the year. I think some people, they own them, they lay around in the pasture all summer, and then they expect this llama to just pick up and start carrying 100 pounds. Well, that llama has not had a chance to get in shape and stay tone. Its body tone isn't good. It'd be like if you took a fat accountant who eats too much Dairy Queen out from behind his desk. Speaking of, of personal experience here, I said, guess what? You're going to go on a backpack elk hunt for the next week. I'd be dead before I even got 2 miles from the truck. So llamas are kind of the same way. The other part where it's really helpful for the places I hunt, and this is mostly Montana, Wyoming, and parts of Idaho, is I get a little bit unnerved if we've got elk hanging in grizzly country for very long. I want to get them the heck out of there. Probably the most unnerving times for me when I'm elk hunting is we shot an elk yesterday. We quartered it. We hung it. We took the first loads out today. We're going back in tomorrow to get the rest of it. My head's on a swivel in grizzly country. I go in with a shotgun. It's like, if this is going to be a close range encounter, I got bear spray, and on my second trip back in, I'm carrying a 12 gauge. I know some people are like, why 12 gauge? Well, 2 purposes. 1, I can shoot the grouse, and 2, that's a way better close range defense mechanism for me than a handgun or a rifle. Yeah. But the point of that is when I can just get it all out of there, like we have when we've had llamas, it's one less concern I have about, one, losing some meat to grizzly bears, having an encounter with a grizzly bear and someone getting hurt, but also just the headache. If you get in an encounter with grizzly bears and you got to report it to the authorities and everything else, nothing good comes of a human grizzly bear encounter. So how can I avoid that? Well, llamas are one of the things. Maybe I manufacture it in my mind, but I have a lot more comfort with llamas that we're getting out of there. Or we're going to spend less time chumming for grizzly bears because we can load it up and get out of Dodge. So,
good stuff.
But when I talked to Bo yesterday, when I was buying this llama, I told him you had a bunch of questions. He said, well, have them tell me. I said, well, here's what I'd like to do. If Corey has these questions, I bet you the audience has these questions. And you should be on the podcast. He's like, okay, I can do that. I can't do it next week, but I can do it the following week. So
perfect.
He said he'd love to do it. So
awesome.
I asked him how the llama rentals are going for hunting season, and we'll get an update when we have him on the podcast. He said, well, normally it's kind of slow until the tag results come out. And once the tag results come out, he said, I get booked up so quick. So my point to that is tag results are coming out. If you're interested in using llamas in this Rocky Mountain area, Northern Rockies area, and renting them from Bo at Wilderness Ridge Trail Llamas, I'd get on the phone sooner rather than later.
Yeah. That probably, yeah. So the area we were going to go this year in Idaho, we were thinking about riding motorcycles for part of the way and going in there. It wouldn't be efficient to use llamas because it's so far in there. And then we're going to Oregon, which I would never subject a poor llama to hunt Roosevelt elk with us in Oregon. But man, it gets into some of the rifle season and late season stuff. There's so many opportunities. But then, like you said, the place that we were hoping to draw that we didn't draw in Wyoming, or general tag in Wyoming, but the place we were hoping to go is Grizzly country. But llamas work great there. Or we typically hunt in Idaho, they would work phenomenal. So yeah,
when I come do my over-the-counter hunt in Idaho, I've already told Kurt from Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. I asked him, I said, "You got an aversion to llamas?" He kind of paused, like, "What kind of stupid question is that? You mean they're going to carry all my stuff for me?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're crazy, man."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, just to make sure. So we're going to use them on the Idaho hunt. The Wyoming hunt, I'm going to go into I'm going to be in the thick of grizzly bear country. So we're going to be going in there with llamas. And then when I do my Colorado hunt, I'm taking llamas into that. Like I'd explained, there's no way I'd hunt that unit without llamas or horses. And from there, I have to go to New Mexico with our sweepstakes winner, who drew an amazing tag on it. First time he ever applies in New Mexico, he draws his first choice of a hunt I've been applying for years, and I've never drawn. But it's in a wilderness area. And in New Mexico, in that region out of Albuquerque, they'll give us a film permit in a wilderness area, whereas some regions won't. So I'm hauling those llamas down there, and we're packing those llamas, or those llamas are packing us into the wilderness area.
Yeah.
And, I'm not packing those llamas. They're packing our stuff. So,
man, that's got to be a long drive with a trailer full of llamas.
It is. That's the one challenge, and you got to stop and let them out to stretch and do their business and water them and give them a little feed every 6 to 7 hours. So it does slow you down for sure, but it sure is nice when they're just walking along behind you, kind of having their good old day, and you don't have anything but an empty pack on your back, and they've got everything else. It's like, all right, yeah,
Bo's llamas packed out Donnie's elk when we hunted Montana last year. Mm-hmm. And I can't say I ever heard them make the sound you just made.
Really?
No, I don't think I have. Is that the sound they make?
No. Sometimes when they're in a good mood and they love to pack, so you'll hear this like, it's almost a cadence that one of them will get into, and then they'll stop, and then they'll get back into it. And so
interesting.
Yeah, if you do them enough, you'll hear some of them making this like humming noise. Right, to me, it sounds like, man, he'd whistle if he could, but he can't.
The whistling llama.
Yeah. There you go. I'm sure if John Prine was still alive, he could come up with a song about a whistling llama, but I'll have to write my own lyrics to it, but I can't.
I can't wait.
Someone else is going to have to sing it.
I can't wait to hear the whistling llama song.
Well, anyhow, I think people can expect sometime in the next 2 podcast episodes that we'll bring Bo on, and he'll talk about all these things. I think tons of people have questions about llamas. I know that just because when they see them on our show, I get inundated with questions about, are they low maintenance, high maintenance?
Yeah.
Do they spit out everybody? Are they stubborn and ornery? And most of that is just misconceptions of people who've had an experience with an ornery old pasture llama, not a true pack llama. So,
yeah, and Bo's such a nice guy that I can't wait to pin him down and pepper him with a whole bunch of llama questions.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, Corey, we've kept people quite a long time.
Yeah.
And we didn't even get through 4 questions, maybe?
Yeah, I say there's been some good questions. So definitely keep those coming for us, because it gives us stuff to talk about that is relevant to what you want to hear answers to. So, and obviously, it's Randy and I. So there's rabbit holes. There's no questions on here about llamas, but somehow we spent 20 minutes talking about llamas, and we're going to do a whole podcast on them. So you can see where your questions lead. It's just give us something to start talking about, and we'll take it from there.
And so people know how this works is when they send that stuff, you and I get the email, and I have this folder. And when we text each other and say, hey, you ready for a podcast next Tuesday? We start going through the list of questions, and we kind of email each other back and forth to formulate the list of what we think is relevant, that we think is common, not just to the questions we get on the Elk Talk podcast site, but you and I have other platforms that we get a lot of feedback on. And so we try to formulate the questions to be something that's relevant to what we understand the audience is trying to learn.
And there's great questions. I mean, a lot of these are things that Randy and I would just overlook and not even think about, that we take for granted. So it's great to have them asked so we can stop and think about it and provide an answer. So please keep them coming. Don't hesitate. If it's, I mean, we obviously can't answer all of them. We get, I don't know, what do we get? 10 a day probably at least. So, 100 a week, something. So we can't answer all of them, but hopefully there's enough similarity between some of them that we're answering multiple when we answer one of them. And please don't take it personal if we don't answer yours. We do our best.
Yeah. And if we don't answer yours, it might be because we found a derivative of it that's similar that maybe came in 3 months ago. And there's a group of them that are kind of similar. So we'll paraphrase the questions in some instances. And then, the one thing that I think you got the same email the other day, 2 days ago, that of our pledge that we would pay $20 towards the first 500 RMEF memberships under the new sportsman's membership category they have. There's only 36 of those vouchers, if you want to call it that, or we're only 36 people away from reaching the 500. So after that, people are going to get to pay full boat. Was that the number? One that was 464 or something?
I don't know. I thought it was less than. I thought there were only like 20 left. But
oh, really? Oh, you might be right. So, but anyhow,
by the time this episode hits, they might all be gone, but there might be the last 20 still left. So don't delay.
Yeah. So you go to rmef.org/ElkTalk, right?
Yep.
That'll take you to the link. Or if you can't remember the URL, go up there, and they now have their membership levels. And on the one that is. Well, I think they actually have to use the URL, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Right. Yep.
Yeah. So
rmef.org/ElkTalk. And, I think when Randy and I first agreed to this, we thought, well, we'll probably get 20 or 30 people that'll take advantage of it. And, you punch it in on a calculator now, and we're close enough that let's just go ahead and fill those last 20 spots, and Randy and I can write the check, and we support 100% the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. And when they presented to us this new membership platform that was directly related to public land access and opening up access for elk hunters, Randy and I, without question, said we want to get behind it and help promote this and support it. So we're excited to write that check on behalf of Elk Talk podcast listeners who take advantage of signing up for that and add their support to something that's very close to our hearts.
Yeah, I'm right. Exactly. That's the way I'd word that, Corey. I'm excited that so many of our listeners took advantage of it. That's the part that is exciting to me is, wow, how many people decided, I want to do more for elk and access and habitat and all the things the Elk Foundation does. And they ponied up and took advantage of it.
And there's a lot of people I've had life members email me and say, hey, I'm already a life member. is there anything I can do to be involved here? Can I sign up for the sportsman's level membership, or what can I do to help, to add, to support public land access? And all those we've just sent straight to the Elk Foundation, said contact them, because I know they will have a plan in place to allow you to be involved. So if you are a life member and want to be involved in this, get a hold of the Elk Foundation. If you're already a member, they can just, if you sign up for the Sportsman, they just add it on another year, so you can still support the public land membership drive, and it's just awesome.
Yeah. Well, Corey, I really appreciate your time today.
Likewise, and I appreciate the time that everybody's given us to listen. If I can make just one more plug for the big promotion we have going on at Elk 101 right now, we are giving away, and
you should.
We're giving away an opportunity for me to hunt with someone this fall. And I mean, that's really it. The prize isn't getting to hunt with me. The prize is me getting to hunt with someone else. And it's those opportunities are so incredibly rewarding and so much fun. They're definitely nerve-wracking, not knowing who the winner's going to be and who we're getting to spend that week with. But without fail, it's always worked out in a very positive and rewarding way for me. And I love sharing elk hunting with others, and whether it's on the podcast, any other platform, but this is more special because it is one-on-one out in the woods. I'm going to be 5 days with nothing but a bugle tube in my hand and getting to call for somebody. So just go to elk101.com/hunt, and you can sign up to win that hunt. Just enter your name and email address. There's no purchase necessary, but if you do want to increase your chances, you can sign up for the University of Elk Hunting online course, and you're going to get 20 chances in that drawing, that promotional giveaway to win that hunt. And the hunt takes place this fall in September 24th to the 29th. It's on a 30,000-acre CWMU in Utah, probably one of the top 5 places to hunt elk in Utah. Big bulls, lots of bulls. And, I think we talk about public land and all that. In order to facilitate something like this, we had to go through an outfitter and do all those things to keep it legal. So it's, but with that being said, we told them we're not staying in any kind of lodge. We are not hunting off of a side-by-side and driving around. We're staying in a tent in the middle of the elk, and we're hunting them run and gun, aggressive calling style. So it's going to be an incredible elk hunting opportunity that I've never experienced. So to be able to share that with somebody new is going to be a pretty incredible opportunity for everyone.
Something tells me you're going to get a lot of interest on that, Corey.
I hope. I just, and again, I told my wife, next time I do this, I think I'm going to have people write an essay or something so I can go through and kind of hand pick who wins. Like, ideally, I would love to hunt with someone who's never harvested an elk. They've been 4 or 5 times, but never have harvested an elk. Somebody who's ready physically to get after it and just go, so we can just hunt hard all day and get the most out of this experience. And the other cool thing is, on a CWMU in Utah, you get to choose whether you hunt archery or rifle. So you can hunt with a rifle if you're a rifle hunter, September 24th to the 29th. So you can bring your bow and a rifle, and we can hunt the first 4 days with a bow. And if we don't get the opportunities or things don't work out or whatever, you can grab the rifle on the last day. You don't have to choose. You can hunt with both during the hunt. So a lot of cool things going on there. Peak of the rut. It's just going to be an incredible experience.
And where can they sign up? elk101.com/hunt?
Yep. We keep it simple.
Yeah. Wow.
I get too confused if I start adding a whole bunch of letters and numbers. So elk101.com/hunt.
When are you going to do the drawing?
The promotion runs through the end of June. So June 30th is the last day to get signed up, and we will draw the winner. I don't know how we're going to do it yet. We've done it where we've drawn out 10 names and put the names on a target and got back at 100 yards and shot a bow, and whichever name the arrow hits, that's the winner. We might just put it in a random number generator. I'm not sure how we'll do it yet, but we'll come up with a creative way, and we'll be announcing the winner by July 3rd, which I think is that a Friday? When's July 4th this year? I'm just looking on the calendar here. Yeah, July 3rd's a Friday. So got a couple weeks still to get entered in that, and we'll be announcing it and making plans to go hunting. What is that, about less than 3 months after we announce the winner? So, yeah, if you're entering, keep that last week of September open.
Cool. I suspect for that, if you were the winner, you could clear your calendar.
Well, here's the other thing. We're filming the hunt for Destination Elk, so you'll be a part of the Destination Elk video series. We are paying travel, lodging, food, license, tags, everything except for game processing and transporting the game back, just because that's such a wild card depending on where somebody lives, if they want to drive, if they want to fly. So those logistics will obviously help with, but we're paying for everything other than that. And then Mountain Ops graciously offered to premiere the film of the hunt in one of their upcoming Mountain Ops film nights, and pay to fly that person out for the premiere for that film night. So tons of cool stuff going on.
Wow. that begs the question of why would somebody not enter that?
Totally. Yeah. And again, it's absolutely a promotion for us to try to get people to sign up for the online course. And, it's not like we're out begging and scrambling, but we want to give an incentive. We want to give people an opportunity that they might not otherwise get. But yeah, you can get a free entry. So why would you not? Throw your name in the hat at least and go sign up for that. And we have a whole bunch of other cool bonus giveaways we're giving out throughout the promotion. Member Appreciation Month for the University of Elk Hunting online course members is coming up in July. And I can't say too much yet, but let's just say if you like free gear, it'll be a benefit to be a member during the month of July this year, because we've got, I'll let a little bit out. We're giving away 8 bows in July to online. 8 bows in July just to...
Not like I...
No, we're giving away 8 bows in July to online course members. And that's just the start of it. We've got a lot more. We're doing some live Q&As with online course members where, they can pick my brain live and answer it. And so, yeah, tons. And, this is me extending my gratitude to people who have supported the online course. It's just been incredible. It's been an incredibly rewarding thing to be able to create the course and share it with others, and just be able to interact with those people who are passionate about elk hunting. And so, we just started looking at it and saying, I read a book that said, you need to be reinvesting in your business. You need to be putting this much money back into marketing. And I really feel that what we need to be investing in is gratitude in those members and giving back to them. So we're actually launching a scholarship program for college scholarships. So members of the online course are eligible for their children to apply for these scholarships. And we're giving away $2,500 in college scholarships this year. And just a lot of cool things that we're able to do as a way of giving back and saying thank you.
Cool. Well, heck, we could have done a whole podcast on that. I feel like I'm cutting you short.
No, that was my shameless plug for the University of Elk Hunting online course, and just we've got a lot going on, a lot of cool stuff, just free stuff, opportunities, and fun things, all centered around elk hunting.
Cool. Well, there you have it, folks. If you don't do that, you're losing out. We have no excuse that we could give you for why you shouldn't do that.
But we have kept them here for a long time, so we probably need to turn them loose and catch them on the next one.
Yep. Well, thanks for being here, folks. Really appreciate y'all.
Yep. Randy, thanks. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.